fanciest place in the world.
Oh mate, check this out.
It's basically,
nice.
I said this to everyone comes in, it's like me trying to recreate a bedroom from when I was 14.
Yeah,
it's just
nice.
Lego.
I get the vibes.
Jobsworth, Season 2, Episode 2, Beyond the Barbershop. Welcome to the second episode of Jobsworth Season 2. My guest this time around is Dean Gleeson, co-founder of Essex-based barbershop Mengo Male Grooming. Full disclosure, Dean has been my barber for well over 15 years now, so I'm under no small amount of pressure to get this intro right for fear of him shaving one of my eyebrows off. I've watched as Dean's become an expert in his trade, took time out to pursue other career opportunities, returned to barbering to co-found a successful business, and become a dad to 3 kids whilst running it. From the outside looking in, it's been one hell of a ride. We discussed the evolution of barbering over the last decade, the challenges of juggling a job you're passionate about with being a hands-on dad, why sometimes you have to follow through with an idea to discover it's not the direction you want to go in, and the trials of running a business in one of the worst hit industries during the pandemic. Along with his business partner Asa, Dean has brought together a collective of talented barbers that offer much more to the community than just a haircut. We talk about exactly what that is, Dean's plans for Mengo, and what it's really like running a business with your best mate. So without further ado, let me introduce you to a guy making waves in the world of barbering and documenting it through some seriously cool content whilst he's at it. Dean Gleeson. Dean, thank you for coming in, and I know it's late, so you've gone home and put the kids to bed.
Yes.
Or you were at home.
Yeah, I was. Day off today.
Yeah.
Day off today.
It was the same thing for me. Like I don't know. We'll talk about parenting and running a business, and maybe some of the guilt that comes with not being present as a parent.
Yeah. I can talk about that.
I think we've got some shared experience there, maybe. But yeah, thanks for doing this evening, because I know what it's like when you've got a young family and everything. So I'm going to start with a tradition on the podcast, and I don't know if you've listened to any full episodes, and I won't hold it against you.
I have to, fair. I have.
Good. Okay. Cool. So the first question I always ask is, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Not a fucking clue, if I'm honest. I was one of those. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was very artistic when I was younger. Always creative, always into my drawing, but didn't know where to take it really. So I ended up going to art college, but quickly found out that one, there's not really a massive career in just drawing until, well, famously you either die and then they get your money, or
that's the standard way of doing it. Yeah, my brother's bucked that trend slightly.
Exactly. So, or it was go down the multimedia graphic design route, which I didn't really want to do. I mean, now years on, the world's evolved and there's a lot more stuff you can do for graphic design and photography and stuff like that. But at the time, it wasn't what I wanted to do. So for whatever reason, I don't know what possessed me to do it, because I'm not even overly sporty. My brother was at sports college, so I thought, I don't know what, let's go down that route, give that a go. And then I don't know what part of me thought it was actually going to work out, but yeah, 6 months later I've dropped out that because I didn't want to do that. And then it was a case of just fumbling around trying to find what I wanted to do, which was then when I kind of fell into the job I'm doing now through my business partner. He was doing hairdressing at the time, asked me if I wanted to come in and have a day, seeing what it was like, and then stuck with it ever since, really. So yeah, the answer is I had no idea, not a clue.
Enough. Did you have any? Because sometimes what I'm trying to tap into that question as well is like, did you ever dream of being something when you were younger?
I'd say the dream was an artist.
It was, right? Okay, yeah.
The dream was an artist, which is, I know we'll probably go into this in a bit later, but that's the route I'm kind of trying to take my career back down now.
Yeah,
to come away from the business I've got to earn money side to untapping the creativity and pushing the boundaries on that side now.
Yeah, nice.
So it might be the inner child artist in me trying to come back out.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, I'm all for that. I'm like a family of artists apart from me, so nice. Yeah, I'm all for banging the drum to get that creativity and get an outlet for that. So that sounds really good. So when did you get into barbering then? How old were you when you started?
16, 17.
Right.
I've been doing it 17 years now and I'm 34. So
okay. And from the sound of it, it's fair to say that was a path that wasn't on the agenda for you. It wasn't on the roadmap when you were considering that. do you feel like it was like a popular route to go down as a potential career for people of your age as well, like 16, 17?
No, I mean, you might have people listening to this that are going to slam me for this, but being a young male hairdresser back in the day, to go home and tell a very heterosexual dad that you want to cut women's hair, there was one response I got to that.
So this is when you started, it was women's hair you were cutting?
Yeah,
right, okay.
Barbering back then, you couldn't just learn barbering, and barbering wasn't what it is today. Barbering today is quite a trendy, cool, popular job because of social and stuff. It's been made almost like celebrity status as a job. Whereas back then, you couldn't just learn men's hair. You had to do women's hair, and you learnt men as that qualification. So my first year of cutting hair was washing old ladies' hair and perming and colouring and cutting and blow drying. So it was, nothing what I thought it was going to be. So I think if it wasn't, which you'll probably like hearing this, if it wasn't for Asa telling me to go in and do, Asa's my business partner, tell him to go in and do that job, I don't think I'd have done it.
Right.
Because it wasn't, I mean, I grew up with a grade 1 all over. Never really used to do my hair. My mum used to cut it every 2 weeks, shave it off, no trips to the barbershop. So I was never really that way inclined. So, it was a bit of an alien subject, and it kind of just come about out of nowhere.
Well, tell me a little bit more about your parents' reaction or your dad's reaction there.
My dad's just very, very heterosexual, like typical man's man. Right. So it would be like, you get introduced to his mates, it's like, oh, this is my gay son, Dean. It's like, back then you think, oh, this is hilarious.
That was the stigma around it and the profession.
Like, the minute you tell people you want to cut women's hair as a living, that people go, oh, I didn't know he was gay. I'm not actually, but thanks for that. Like,
I think, and that was part of the reason I wanted to ask the question, and we'll talk about the evolution and of how it's perceived now. But I think at that time, I mean, I was getting my hair cut, and I might share the anecdote that brought me to you 19, 20 years ago now as well. Something like that.
Yeah, it must be,
So I can share a bit more about that. But I was getting my hair cut by women. Yeah. Like, up until the point I started coming to the shop that you were working at. And barbers just weren't a thing. Or the barbers that you saw on the high street, usually it was like an old guy with one or two chairs cutting other old guys' hair. And that was the kind of stigma and the stereotype I had in my head.
Yeah, you had two sides of it. It was like, if you wanted a bit of a trendy haircut, you'd go to a woman's stylist.
Yes.
If you wanted a short back and sides with a bit of gel slapped in the top, you went to a traditional barber.
Yeah.
And that's the crossover that's now happened over the last 5 to 10 years, whereas there's kind of this hybrid that's been born where hairdressers and barbers are kind of moulding into one. So you're getting the styling and the understanding of hair from the hairdressing side, but you're getting the traditional techniques come through from the barbering.
Right. Okay.
Which is why I think it's become a more of a mainstream popular job, because it's all of a sudden you see all these celebrities getting their hair cut by people, and it's now within reach. Whereas back in when I first started cutting hair, it was like Nicky Clark, Trevor Sorbet, Leigh Stafford, all of those done the celebrities and no one else got near.
Yeah.
Whereas now, because of social, you might get lucky by dropping someone a message and getting a response from it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I remember on my 21st birthday having, it might have been my 18th, it's my 18th birthday, because it was before I started getting my hair cut with you. And I went to Stafford's.
Yeah.
And it was like the first time I'd ever been offered, oh, do you want a beer? Like on my 18th birthday going in. It was one of the worst haircuts I've ever had.
It didn't care though.
Because it was just, it wasn't Leigh Stafford cutting it, to be fair, but it was a woman cutting my hair. And it was just, the experience felt like a big thing at the time.
And then you've nailed it there, because that is what they sold. The haircuts were good, like some of the people they'd working there were good, but it was the experience. People went there because it was, I mean, their slogan was the house that hair built.
Yeah.
And it was,
I remember their old shop. It was on London Road, wasn't it? Yeah.
Had a big Stafford dog on the side, and it was just a cool place to go. Like, if you got your hair cut by Stafford, you weren't going in there for a bog standard haircut. You were coming out with something a little bit edgy, a little bit rough and ready.
And your wallet was a lot lighter as well.
Massively for the especially at the time.
Yeah, that was mad. So you've been cutting then, how many years?
17.
17 years.
Yeah, 17, 18 years, yeah.
So I would have come quite early on when you were working at the previous barbers then, when I started getting my hair cut with you. we kind of touched upon it already, but what is the primary difference? Like, you weren't seeing as many barbers as you are now on the high street. So what do you think is the primary shift that's happened?
I think people now run it more as a business. Like, when I first started cutting hair, there was no appointments. It was just, you walked in, you sat on a bench with 5 other guys, and you got seen by whoever saw you. Whereas now you've got booking platforms that people can schedule for months into the future. So it's a lot more efficient. And I think just the world in general has pushed this agenda now, whether it's for better or worse, that you need to look a certain way. So people won't go out without their hair looking a certain way, or they won't be caught dead in a picture without wearing certain clothes. And it's terrible for self-esteem, but it's great for business. So it's one of those that
it's the balance.
as much as like the humility side of me thinks, oh no, I shouldn't lean into this, my business side says, shut the fuck up and just do your job. Like, because it's the minute you tap into a man's vanity, you can take them for all they're worth. And it sounds horrible saying that, but I'm like it. Like, the minute
we all are to a degree.
Like the minute you think that your hair's receding or you're going grey or whatever, people spend thousands trying to correct it. Whereas really my job should be to get people to think it's not a problem, like, just deal with it, which is what we do to a certain degree now. But the other side of it is, from a business point of view, if you literally went down that route, you need to tap into it.
You've got to make money at the end of the day.
100%, yeah.
And I think, what's become clear now with the amount of barbershops that you see is that there is a model, there is a process to make money out of this as a profession, and the frequency in which people get their hair cut. Like, I'm guilty of it. Like, every 2 or 3 weeks I'm getting my hair cut. You probably have people that come in a lot more regularly than I do.
It used to be 4 to 6 weeks. That was the time frame. That would be like a average return on your clients, whereas now I'd say a good 15 to 20% of our clients are once a week. Really? Wow. Yeah. Skin fades have been the saviour.
Exactly. The minute...
I mean, it's only recently, like, Ace will attest to this as well, we've made a lot of, not mistakes, but we got into the job cutting hair, and then you hit a point where you think, all right, I want to do it on my own. I want to go off. I don't want to boss anymore. I want to work for myself. But you've got no idea how to do it. We've had the business 9 years now. So 26, 27 when we opened the shop. And it was, no one had a clue. Like, we knew how to cut hair well to a good standard, but I had no business acumen at all. So the problem is, you open this shop thinking that it's going to be earning you millions and you can just work when you want and stuff. But then you quickly find out the bills need paying. So what then happens is you're then behind the chair 5 days a week working more than you used to for your old business. And the issue we've had right up until now really is you're the main source of income to that shop. So then you can't then step away from it, because the minute you step away, the profits then plummet. So it's now trying to sort of put systems in place so we can take a step back and run it. I mean, I don't know if you've read the book, The E-Myth.
I haven't, no.
Worth a read.
Okay, I'll include a link to that in the comments, actually.
Michael Gerber, I think the guy's name is. Gerber. But he says in there, if your business depends on you, you don't own a business, you have a job.
I've heard that quote. Yeah, definitely.
And it says it's the worst job in the world because your boss is a lunatic. Because no one's going to make you work harder than you have to work yourself. And it's like, now I've got kids, my business partner's got kids, and you're trying to now steer the ship in a new direction where it kind of runs itself.
I think that's a dream for anyone. Same for me. And I think the quote applies really well to me as a one-man band doing it all on my own. How can you afford to take a step away and leave things? It's the one way to see your business careen off a cliff, basically, and that is a huge issue. And I think we're all striving for this work-life balance, which is this moving target, especially with young children, and that is a really tough goal to achieve. We'll talk about the balance between being a dad and running the business in a bit, and also, you know, having a business partner and what that's like when you're sort of sharing that. You've got that shared goal, and maybe slightly different ways. We can explore that a bit, slightly different ways in how you want to get there. Do you think it was when so Mengo, your barbers, I don't know if we've mentioned Mengo, but I will do in the intro, and we are now. So Mengo is Dean's shop in Leigh. Was it when you opened Mengo that you really decided this is the career I want to stick in, or had you made that decision earlier down the line?
I'd already made that decision. I mean, I took a bit of a tangent in my career took a sabbatical, say, and I was actually tattooing for
I remember that
5 years solid. And it was no real reason really. It was just I kind of got a bit tired of where I was in the hair industry for a while, because it hit this sort of plateau of I didn't really know where to go with it. It kind of gone into a cul-de-sac, and I think what it was is I needed that step then. Like I needed to either open up my own shop or go down the education route.
What stopped you at that point?
I just didn't know how to do it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I didn't have, I think I was too young at the time. I didn't have that mindset to sort of pivot and think, right, I'll lean into this feeling and see where it takes me. Whereas then I thought, I'm not really enjoying where I am, let's try something different. And I had the luxury back then of doing it because I still lived at home, didn't have kids, like no one really depended on me. So
I did, Dean. You didn't cut my hair for a few years or however long it was that you were doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've upset a few customers. If you're listening, I do apologise.
Yeah.
But I was getting tattooed at the time, and I was getting tattooed, and I was just saying, like, look, I'm considering a different career path, and they already knew that I could draw and I'd been into my like art and stuff, and I just done an apprenticeship. Went there for a week, done an apprenticeship, and luckily the guy who was there at the time was leaving, so I kind of just slotted in, and yeah, it just sort of rolled from there, and I went full-time for 5 years.
Was it 5 years you did that for?
Yeah, 5 years, yeah.
Bloody hell. But that was that creative outlet that you were looking for.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
That itch you needed to scratch.
Why it was easy for me to lean into that industry was because it almost a light bulb went off of like, oh, this is what you wanted to do from the beginning. But then it's a great industry. I met some like incredible people, and I still have my foot in the industry. And it might be something in a few years that we kind of amalgamate the two businesses together. We get a tattoo studio in the barbershop. But it's very hard to switch off from tattooing. Barbering, as much as it's my business, I can shut the door and not have to think about it. Whereas tattooing, it's 24/7, and it's tough. Like to do that with a family, like I take my hat off to people that do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that other than having a couple of tattoos, I've got no insight into whatsoever. But I do appreciate that the way that work for so many people can bleed into life, and that makes it really difficult to switch off and be present. And when you talk about having kids, that's what we're all aiming or striving to do. Okay, so 4.5 years, 5 years doing that. What dragged you back to barbering?
There was a few. One of them was health more than anything. It was I started suffering with a condition called ulcerative colitis. Right. Which is, to those that don't know, it's very similar to Crohn's disease. And I was like 24, 25 at the time, kind of didn't want to accept it, a bit naive. So I kind of just powered through for a few months, a year. And it got to a point where you thought, right, well, you need to get this like seriously looked at now. So I had all the investigations done. Turned out that it was this ulcerative colitis. And the way the hospital treat ulcerative colitis is you go on the lowest form of medication possible, and then they taper it up to try and catch up, like beat it. And unfortunately it didn't work with me, so I ended up having to have major surgery. But that was once I'd gone back to barbering. But the reason I come out of tattooing is because you're sitting down crunched up for 8 hours a day. Your diet's not great, your stress levels aren't great, and they were all kind of determining factors that weren't going to help the condition itself. So it was actually Asa again who said to me, look, I'm considering opening up my own business. Would you want to do it with me? And it was kind of like a shining vessel of hope that thought, right, I can get out of this. And kind of, I think it was my viewpoint was because I didn't know where the illness was going to go at that point. Yeah. So it was
it's scary at that age. You feel fallible for the first time, and you're not invincible. And
especially as men, we don't like. I was a bit like, oh, don't worry, it'll go away.
Yeah, I think that's an approach most of us take. Yeah,
but it doesn't. It doesn't go away at all. And it was, I think, part of my brain thought, well, if I can run this business, if the health does get worse, at least I can then just still run the business. So, it kind of just opened up this opportunity to sort of run with it and see where it went. Yeah.
And what did that do? Like from a mindset perspective then, like hearing that news that you've got this health condition that is impacting you, and however much you want to sweep it under the carpet, pretend everything's okay, you've got to make changes. Yeah. And maybe we can go into a bit of detail that, like lifestyle, diet, whatever that looks like. How does that affect you? Especially going in then to this new venture with Asa. Like did it sort of imbue you with this sense of direction now? Like you're committed to starting a business, you're committed to barbering again. Yeah. Did it motivate you in a positive way?
Yeah, and I think the barbering was a healthy distraction because the problem with the illness was you just want to lock yourself away and not go out, because it's, as much as like people won't want to talk about, it's an embarrassing illness. Like for me personally anyway, I was quite extroverted. I'd be out every weekend, and then you get to a point where I wouldn't leave my house unless I knew there was a toilet within a 5-minute radius. So straight away you just sort of go back into your shell. You don't want to do anything. You sort of lock down. Training went out the window, and I'd always been into my health and fitness, so it was good. It was a healthy distraction to sort of focus myself on and not go down the other direction of I'm just going to become a recluse and just sit at home and do nothing.
Bury your head in the sand, close the door, not go out again. It's
very much like I used to suffer with the whole why me mindset. Like I'd sit there and think, why have I got this? Why? Whereas you now need to look at it from different perspectives of, well, you've got it because you are tough enough to deal with it. So it's different ways. I mean, I never really used to read stuff back then, whereas now I'm very much self-help progression books and positive mindsets, and the martial arts I do now are very meditative and sort of switching your mind to a positive place. And it's all of that kind of stuff's helped and given it a different outlook now.
Yeah. That's really good to hear, mate. That's fantastic. I mean, Asa again to thank in a way, to sort of like giving this option.
Asa's head's getting bigger and bigger listening to this episode.
I mean, he's not here as well to take all the plaudits. But I mean, it's great. I think there are people in your life that just open doors sometimes, and it sounded like at that point that was a really good time for that to happen.
Massively. Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's fairly obvious then why you decided to go down the business route and set up. You've got all these years of experience. You wanted an opportunity to make more from that, both financially and also not have a boss, which I think is... I mean, it's definitely why I set up on my own. One of the common themes that I'm exploring through every guest that comes on in season 2 is the location that we live in. So a lot of the guests are from Leigh and Southend. And why Leigh for a barbershop? Because you were one of the first, like 9 years ago. You were one of the first there. So
well, that should prove right there how many have opened since we've been there.
Yeah, and gone.
I mean, if you're not from around the area, it's hard to explain. But Leigh is this beautiful little pocket surrounded by rubbish. That's the nicest way I could put it. Like,
Dean doesn't work on the tourist board for this part of it.
Like, there's nowhere else really like it. There's not many towns that are owned by independent retailers. Like you walk down Leigh, there's, I think in the whole stretch of the Broadway, there's 2 chains. 3 chains maybe.
And when they open, there is uproar, isn't there? Like
absolutely.
when you hear they're coming, there's like pickets and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
And that was what kind of drew us to the area. Was, I mean, now you can look at it from like it's an affluent area and there's going to be people willing to spend enough money and all this. Whereas back then, it was just a nice area. But people there's not many places where people just go for a day. Yeah. Like I do with my family. We go down to Old Leigh. We go for a walk, get a coffee, walk down the seafront. There's not many towns that do that, and it's kind of become a hub now, like, because you can get to London in 40 minutes. You're right in the centre of everything, and it's, to me, it's kind of like a mini London, because there's an opportunity place there where there's so many different industries and different job ventures going on there. You can kind of make anything happen from there. And that's kind of what sold it to me. I wasn't walking around thinking, oh, people got a load of money around here. I was walking around thinking that it's, where would I want to go to get my hair cut? Yeah. And it was Leigh.
Yeah. I think, again, one of the reasons that I focused on people from this area, like it's creatives, entrepreneurs, business owners, it's because of the volume in that stretch of Leigh Road, Leigh Broadway. And there's a few guests this season that are outside that kind of strict zone, but I just think the volume of people in that tiny area is too high not for there something to be
massively,
going on about it. So you're right. So no regrets setting up in Leigh then.
No, because we kind of looked around at a few different places. I mean, I worked in Southend, I worked in Rayleigh, I live in Eastwood, and we kind of was looking around. The shop we're in now was actually the first shop we looked at.
Really? Yeah.
But the layout at the time, we kind of looked at and thought, it's not going to work. So we dismissed it. And we was waiting around. And it was only when I sort of thought, I'll float the question to the landlord if she'd mind the walls coming down inside. And it turned out she didn't even have a clue they were in there. Whoever was renting the shop before us, just put them up as treatment rooms. And as soon as they come down, you then had this whole open space that you could then see the vision, get the layout done, and sort of build from there. So it was, no regrets at all.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. So since I've known you, you've had the shop for 9 years now. Since I've known you, which we're saying, I mean, I said 20 earlier, and that's too long.
It's got to be at least 17.
It's got to be 16, 17 years. So just quick anecdote. I had one of the worst haircuts ever at a place that's now gone under, so I will name it, called Snippers in Leigh.
Yep.
Awful haircut. And Dean salvaged what was left of my hair, and I did actually have a buzz cut, but it was a buzz cut like I'd never had it before. So
nice.
My experience was very much just take a trimmer to my own head and just see what happens. But then that started a relationship with Dean that still lasts to this day, which is I don't know, it's testament
romantic.
to me. It's romantic. It's lovely. So it's a real love story. So I've known you for a long time. I've known you as a single guy, living at home, no responsibilities, able to take that decision, fuck barbering, I'm going to go and tattoo for 5 years. Now you've got 3 kids under the age of 5 or 5 and under?
Under the age of 5, yeah. 5 in April. Yeah.
So that's a huge shift. Now I know how passionate about work you are.
Yeah.
How is going to be a broad question, but how do you get the balance right between running a business and being a dad and a partner as well?
I'm still trying to work that out, and my missus will be chuckling at home listening to this question, because it's a debate we have on a regular basis. And I'll tell you why. And I know we've spoke about this before, because as much as people say like, I only do my job because I love doing my job and I don't care about the fame and I don't care about this, there is a part of me, as much as I don't like admitting it, and it's maybe a narcissistic point of me, but I enjoy the fame side of it. I like being on stage. I like going to shows. I like when I get work with Wild I'm working with, when I'm on their socials and I'm promoting a brand. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's a suppressed thing from when I was younger that's now like trying to get look at me, look what I'm doing.
Like a validation
maybe.
type of thing. Yeah.
And so the problem with that is when I do get work thrown at me, like I'm fortunate enough to be part of like the Wild artistic team now. And the minute they give me a job, like I had to go to America last year, the minute they offer me that, I'm like, I'm doing it. And then I think, oh crap, I've got a family. Whereas it's hard because, honestly, if Alice is watching this or listening to this, she'll be cracking up, because she says it all the time. She's like, you don't even think about us when you get these things, do you? And you think, no, I do, but the screaming kid inside me wants to do them. So I'm still trying to work on that balance. But my family will always come first. But I try to kind of blur the lines of what I'm doing for work because it's providing for them. Whereas it's probably an egotistical side of me that should think you need to turn some of these jobs down. But one, they do pay well, and 2, I enjoy them. But there is going to hit a point, especially as the kids get older, where I'm going to have to kind of balance that a little bit better. Yeah,
it's a really tough thing. I mean, our kids are similar ages, so I've got Finley, who's 5 and rapidly approaching 6 now, and Bodhi, who's 2. And I don't know, I might go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but when I had kids, I automatically thought I was going to fall into the same story as everyone else. Is like my kids are my entire world. Like I would do everything for my children, and I do to a big, like a great degree. But I also have aspirations for myself that are completely separate from my kids. And sometimes I feel like some narratives out there will make you feel quite selfish for wanting something for yourself.
That's how I feel with it.
For the pure shits and giggles of wanting something for yourself, to be called something, to be named something, to be on a stage, to be mentioned in the same sentence as whatever. That is maybe I wouldn't go as far as narcissistic. I'm not a therapist, but we've got our own aspirations as dads, and I would die for my kids, but there's also stuff that I want to do completely separate of my children.
Massively.
And so how do you... I'll go into this. I will ask this question. How do you think as dads then we're made to feel when that is sort of like, I don't know, when that question is aimed at you, you know?
Oh, I definitely get the guilt of it, but not from other people's point of view. Like I'm not...
It's
like
a self intrinsic
like my
thing.
partner would never make me feel guilty for like going to do these jobs, because she knows I'm doing it because it's work. Like if I was going out away with the lads on a jolly up every month, then it's a bit different. But I'm going away and doing work, and she loves that I'm passionate about the job that I'm doing. But for me, it's then kind of like, I see the kids when I get back, when I've been away for 7 days, and I see how much they've missed me, and you think, oh, like, would they rather I be here? But then what's the flip side of that? You then become a dad that isn't setting them goals for them. Like I want them to do a job that they're passionate about and they're hungry about. So if I'm not showing that, then how are they ever going to aim at that? And it's like I say this all the time to people I talk to about, I kind of have two hats. I have my work hat and then I have my family hat. And it's being able to change them when you need to, because I like to keep them separate. Like if you go on my social media, there's nothing about my kids on it. One, because I have some weirdos on my social media, but two, because they're separate. Because I don't want to blend the two worlds together, because I think that's when it becomes a problem, because then I take my work home and I bring my family problems to work or whatever. So I try to, when I'm at home, I've got my home hat on, and when I'm at work, I've got my business hat on. And that's how I keep it.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, I'm jealous. And I know it's not as easy as that. I know you're saying it's black and white as that, and I know it's not that easy, but I think that's what we're all striving to do.
Yeah, I mean, I put the wrong hat on regular times.
Yeah, sometimes it's back to front, sideward. Yeah. No, I get that completely. I did want to talk to you because I think your industry was one of, if not the most hardest during the pandemic. And I'm not going to speak about the pandemic for long, but you are literally closed for how many months?
Oh, it's got to be 8.
8 months.
Yes, 6 to 8 months, I think it was, in total. Because we had the first one. I mean, the first one was, I had kind of whispers of like, oh, we're going to be shut for this long. And people were like, oh, give it 2 weeks, we'll be back. And then it come out that we were going to be shut for like, the whole of summer, basically, wasn't it? And then we were open again, and we were back shut again. But the thing that done us was the regulations that come in from it. So it wasn't as if your business shut and then it was open, it was back to full capacity. You couldn't have more than a certain amount of people in the shop. You couldn't do beard trims. Everyone had to wear masks, and it was like people stopped coming in because it was just uncomfortable. Like you don't want to sit there getting your hair cut with a mask on. Like it's itchy enough getting your hair cut, let alone when you've got a face mask on. And it just killed the business. We lost a good percentage of clients where they just thought, I'll just cut it at home. I'll just start shaving my own head. Or
but that was a movement, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course it was, the buzz cut trend. Like it caught on, and it helped some people because they've grown their hair. They've been trying to grow their hair for years, and they look fantastic now. But yeah, it did rock the industry but then on the rebound of it was it made people realise how valuable barbers are.
Right.
I think that's what I mean. You've only got to cut your own hair once at home and realise that it's not as easy as you think it is.
I had a crack, definitely.
So there was a lot of downsides to it, but coming out of it now, it's kind of bringing it back up. But people have got to be careful the route they go down, because you've got some people now that have come back in, they were charging £15 a haircut, and are now coming back in at 40 quid a haircut. Because
is that through trying to recoup some of the money they lost?
I just think they're trying to capitalise on the fact that people couldn't get a haircut for so long. They've now realised how valuable they are, so they're trying to just overdo it. I think. I mean, everyone puts their prices up, but it's all about value to me. Like our biggest thing with our shop is how much value can you provide a customer? Because you can charge what you want as long as they believe they're getting that amount of value. Yeah,
true.
So it's finding that balance. If I all of a sudden up my prices £10 tomorrow, but done nothing different, you're not going to want to pay it.
Yeah, and I think price increases like incrementally are expected in any industry, course, especially with the way life is at the moment, and just the cost of living in general. But I get what you mean. Yeah, if you're gonna have a real significant increase, there has to be a significant increase in the service or the offering that people are getting. It's interesting that you say about people trying to bump prices up to sort of capitalise on that feeling of because I know I missed it. I've talked to you before about my trips to the barbers being like my version of self-care. Like it's the only time I will ever sit in a chair on, like it's like free therapy. I'm paying for a haircut, but the therapy and the conversation's all free. Like this is all a chat and it's part of the experience.
Well, there was a guy I actually heard there's another podcast I was listening to the other guy, American guy called Ivan Zoot, and he's I can't remember where he works now, but he's in America, and he was saying that barbering isn't about good haircuts, it's about good relationships. He said the amount of times he's been in barbershops where the best hairdresser in there is the quietest, because he's got no people skills, whereas the person who can't cut hair that great is fully booked, because good haircuts are easy to find now, whereas good people are hard to find. And that's that's something we're trying to do now. I mean, you've had your hair cut by most of the people in our shop, and we kind of want to pride ourselves on the fact that anyone can get on with you and give you the service you need. And like you just said, a lot of the guys that come in now isn't just about a haircut. A lot of the time they want to offload, or they want to hear about our day or whatever, and it's kind of, I mean, I've been told some stuff by my clients that I definitely should not have been told. And I
might fall into that category.
It's a weird kind of dynamic when you're in a barber chair, because I mean, I've heard about it before, but people say it's because you're hitting so many sensory points, so touch, sound, smell, vision, like
just that proximity to someone as well. There's very few.
It's vulnerable, isn't it?
Yeah, completely.
And I think because you're in that vulnerable position, you've got no choice but to let it happen. Then guards come down.
Yeah.
And people think, all right, I can. I mean, you're trusting them with your hair, so it kind of leads into, I can talk to this guy. And I know things about my clients that I guarantee even their wives don't know. Please don't come in and ask me about your husband's secrets.
That's another podcast episode, I reckon. Have you seen a bit of an evolution over the years? I know we talked about how the industry has changed, but like the types of conversations you're having now with guys in the chair, do you find that men over 17 years have started to open up more? People
are definitely more open to being vulnerable now, and I think we play a big lead in that. I mean, we touched on it earlier with my illness, but the minute that was the path I went down, because it could have been quite easy for me to just not tell anyone, keep it behind closed doors and have it as my little secret I kept to myself. But I went the other way, and I thought, I'm just going to talk about this, tell people I've been off, what's happening. And the minute I started sharing that, people went, oh, I've got that, or I've had them symptoms, or my brother's got that. And all of a sudden, it then starts this whole conversation where you're not the only one who's got it. And I think a lot of that as a barber is what we need to tap into, where you're not therapists, I'm not quoting that at all, but you can start to pick up on people's moods and the way they look and stuff, and you can tell if something's off. And I think that's our point, to sort of, I'm not going to counsel anyone when they're in the chair, but if I can help you with anything, I'll try and help you with it. So the haircut is a small portion of it.
Yeah, it's like a value add for the person sat in the chair, but for you, I guess it gives you that sense of that you're doing, the work you do is meaningful, obviously, but you're getting something like there's a deeper, less superficial meaning with what you're doing, because of the impact you're making on people when they've left the shop.
Massively, And I would never have got into the industry if I was just going to do it for money, because I could earn a lot more money doing something much different. I could go sit in an office typing in computers for hours and earn more money, but I enjoy that aspect. I enjoy meeting people and building these relationships. And yes, there's a financial side to it, but I think if it wasn't for the other side of it, of getting these connections and networking, which is something that I'm really pushing now with the business side of it with networking, but the personal side of it, I mean, some of my customers now I've had since I started cutting hair, and they're some of my close mates, and there's not many other jobs you do that in.
No, definitely not. And that consistency, like if you're seeing people once a week, twice a month, whatever that looks like, you develop relationships over that time if you're good at what it is you do. Okay, you run the business, so you run Mengo with Asa. What was the experience like setting up with a business partner, and then what's it been like continuing to manage the business with someone else? Because I can't imagine it's easy all the time.
No, not at all. Experience setting up was just sunshine and rainbows, because we was two young, excited kids
living the dream almost in a way.
Like, we got out, we got our own place, we started doing something we loved, and at first it was, I mean, we was quiet as anything when we first opened. Like if you look back on what we first used to make, what we thought was a good week, if we weren't that now, it'd be terrible.
Really?
But you still loved it, and it was, I still love it now, but it's like different visions on it now. But we've never fell out. I mean, I said, like, we've had topics we discuss, and we've had sort of different visions on stuff, but we've never had bust ups. Like we've never gone at each other, we've never had real disagreements, and I think that comes from learning. We're very different people, but I don't think that's a bad thing. No, I'm more of the showy, go work for companies, do the education, whereas Asa is very, I mean, I don't think I've ever met a barber who's as booked up as him. He's very
I've noticed that about Asa.
The work ethic is ridiculous. Like he'll just work and work and work and work and work, and it's the excitement is always there. I mean, we're now taking the next step to progress the business even more, like we touched on earlier. We're now trying to steer it into a place where we can grow the business and take the business to a place where it actually works for us rather than us having to work for it. So that excitement, the fire's there again. But yeah, there's been times over the years where we've not seen eye to eye on where we wanted our visions to go, and there may have been points where we could have split, or we were going to split, but we've worked through it and we've seen the vision and it's come back onto the same path. So yeah, I'm excited where it's going.
It's like any relationship, isn't it? You're never going to have smooth sailing.
100%.
You're two individual people with your own aspirations too, but it's lovely to see, and you get that sense from the shop that you two are a really strong partnership. What do you think are some of the pros of working with a business partner as opposed to just going it on your own?
Well, your problems are halved for a start. Like, it's straight away you respond. I mean, especially for me, I had to have 3 major surgeries that required me to have a month off.
And a load of paternity leave.
And a load of paternity leave, yeah. So, I mean, straight away off the bat, if I didn't have a business partner, that would have been 6 months out of the business.
Yeah. Which is potentially critical depending on
massively.
who else you've got in.
Or the flip side of that is I go back from surgery too soon and don't recover in time, or I cut my maternity short, which then affects the time I've spent with the family. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm grateful for a business partner, and especially in that aspect, because it's allowed me to do what I needed to do, but the business still maintain its income. Yeah. And it's now like Ace has just had a kid. He's now starting his family journey, and it's now I will then take over that role where he'll take the time off. I'll hold the fort down. So yeah, for the biggest point, but it's just nice as well we'll go grab a coffee and we'll just chew the fat. And it's nice as well because I'm kind of risk taker. I would just think, fuck it, let's take on a massive shop and just see what happens. Yep. Whereas I think I personally need someone to go, whoa.
Just counterbalance that. Yeah.
Let's wait a minute and let's see where this goes. And that is Asa to me. Asa is my kind of like, let's take a breath and see, because it's very easy where I'm getting momentum with the other stuff I'm doing in the industry to think, I'll be all right. Like, let's take a risk. Let's put a down payment down. Let's set up this massive place. But then when we have a chat about it, you think, all right, yeah, we'd actually be shut in a week.
Yeah, I definitely think you need that person that's going to force you to have a sense check. Yeah. And say to you, like, you know, maybe think bigger picture, what the ramifications of decisions you're making. I think very similar to you in that if I'm motivated to do something, I'll think in the short term and I'll go, I'm committing to that. And then mid to long term, it takes someone else to just chime in and go, you sure? Like, have you really thought that through? But you need the balance, don't you? Because sometimes people can be too risk averse and don't want to do anything and move forward. What do you think Asa would say is the hardest thing about working with you?
Probably I'd say it's passion rather than anything, but it's the same problem I have with the family is the same problem I have with Asa. Right. Whereas I get offered these jobs to go abroad and to do this, and it's when I first take them, I don't personally look at it from the whole spectrum of like how this could look from the opposite side. Yeah, you're going to be out of the business. Exactly that. Yeah. So that's now what we're really focusing on, how to make that more fair. Really, if it's the most honest way of saying it, but how to make it work for the business rather than like how can we use that to market Mengo. Understood. Yeah. So then, not stop doing it, but utilise it. So do the trips, but make sure the trips are benefiting Mengo. Yeah. So that's where I've got to take on that sort of role of, right, I'll still do these if they're going to benefit what we're doing here. Because at the end of the day, like, I love what I do for a while. I'll do it for as long as I can. But there is a shelf life of it. Yeah. Like, you're not going to be on stage cutting and educating when you're 45 years old because there's going to be a new, trendier, shinier object that comes through the ranks that's going to take your place, which is natural. So it's kind of doing what I can with it now to then support what we're trying to build for the future. Because your personal brand's huge, like all the stuff that you do from your own perspective, and again, that ticks the boxes artistically, ticks those narcissistic, but ticks the boxes of these aspirations that you got yourself is really strong. And I do understand it. Yeah, if you can weaponize it, harness it to then
promote the business at the same time. I think that's a really good move to go down. So with the creative stuff, because I saw something on your socials the other day about doing a photo shoot in the shop.
In the shop, yeah.
So when you say you want to explore that further or start drawing that into what you're doing, tell us a bit more about that. What's the kind of project around that?
That is, it's kind of me carving a niche for myself, because especially on stage, when I first started cutting hair, if you could do a skin fade, you'd stand out.
Right.
Because not many people could do them, because like we were saying, people were hairdressers and then they started becoming barbers. So if you were early onset of learning how to do them type of haircuts, you'd stand out on stage. Everyone can skin fade now. So when I'm on stage educating, if there's 4 or 5 people doing similar haircuts, there's no real reason that someone's going to be drawn to you. Whereas if all of a sudden you walk past our stage and I'm doing patterns in the back of someone's head, like carving shapes in the back of their hair, all of a sudden, whether you like it or not, you're going to watch it, because it's creative, it's artistic, it's something you probably can't do yourself. So all of a sudden it then gives you that edge of, oh, okay, let's go have a look what this guy's doing. But more than anything, yeah, it's just me. I've been one of those for years now. I've been sitting there watching people on socials, big in America at the moment, like you'd never get them as normal haircuts in the chair, but that's not why they're doing them. They're doing it because
it is art.
They want to do them. And it's kind of, I want to explore that. I want to push the boundaries. I want to see how far I can take that. And I think that is the side of the industry that I've been missing out on for so long, because it's very easy, especially when you've got kids, to think, I'll just cut hair 5 days a week. I'll earn a good salary and I'll be sensible. Whereas now it's at a point where I think you can do both. Yeah. Like the shop's stable enough. We've got enough boys working for us that we can do both. And it's seeing it from a different perspective of, when you don't understand how to do it yourself, you have to pay people. So I've now gone down this route of educating myself. Not massively, like I'm not saying I'm a photographer by any means, but I know how to get by now. And I think that's the biggest step for me, is it's not going to be perfect, but it's getting it done. And then I can build on it. Yeah. So it's given me that starting point that I now might develop into photography a bit more, or I might do videography a bit more, because I'm enjoying that side of it. And
I think the process part of what people are doing day to day is what a lot of people tap into. Definitely on social media. I think authenticity and showing the human aspect of what people are doing for a job is becoming even more important, because I keep talking about AI in every conversation I have. But with artificial intelligence, I don't ever think we're going to be sat in a chair, or it's a long way off, with a robot cutting our hair. But the way it's portrayed on social media with the advent of AI could very quickly all look like the same shit going out there. So I think showing process stuff is an important evolution. Yeah. And I keep talking to my brother about that as well, from that creativity perspective. Yeah. You have to show how things are done to show there's a human behind it. Yeah. And that's how you can stand out. I've got 2 questions left, and then a closing question, Dean. So in terms of managing people, you say you've got a few guys now in the shop. I know I probably have had my hair cut by most of them. And I know the way that you manage them is slightly different from like your standard employer-employee relationship. But how do you find that part of what it is you do? How much do you get involved in day-to-day management of those people?
That is probably my biggest struggle, because I'm like a ball in a china shop. Like if I'm not happy with something, I'm very quick to react. And it's the same at home as well. I know I said to you before about I'm constantly learning on the job being a dad, because it doesn't come naturally to me. I think you get natural parents and you get technical parents, and I'm definitely a technical parent. I love being a dad more than anything in the world, but it's not natural. So when the kids are screaming, or when people aren't doing what I want at work, my head just goes I don't lose my temper, I'm not go off the road, but it bothers me. Whereas I think different people deal with it very different, and I think if we started again, I would have different processes in place. I would run it, not corporate, because I think there needs to be that personal and that more intimate element to it when you work in a smaller shop. But I think there would need to be more of a separation, because it's very easy when we're all similar age in our shop to be like, oh, we're all just mates. Yeah. And it's all the boys have got respect for us. But if to expand it and to go into a bigger shop or more locations, like if we set up 5 more shops, for instance, we would have to have systems in place for staff.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you'd have to be in all of them. That's the issue we need to work on, because it's, as much as you don't want to run it like a corporate business, you need to if you want to expand.
So many organisations suffer from the same thing though when they're growing. It's how do you transition out of that? People hate the word family, and I'm not saying that's what it is at all, but you know, a closer knit type of business to then try and break free of that, because that can come with its own issues. The closer you are, the more exposed you have to each other's shit all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So I get why. So is that the plan then for Mengo moving forward? Do you think it's going to be additional sites, or is this still like
this is a conversation we're having at the moment. It's either going to be a bigger premises that offers more services, or it's going to be multiple locations. And it's kind of working out what's going to work more beneficial for us, because if we go bigger, we're still going to be a very big part of it, which is fine. I want to do that, but it depends what the goal is. If the goal is to step back from it more, I mean, my personal goal would be to drop, or be able to drop to 3 days a week, and refine my client list. So I've got my regular loyal customers that have been with me for years. I don't take on any new clients. All the new clients go to the boys, and then my clientele grow with me. And then that allows me to then spend more time with the family or do the shows and stuff like that. Because at the moment, working 5 days a week, it then goes into your own time. If you need to do a show or educate, it's then your 6th or 7th day you're giving up. Whereas if you've got them 3 days, it then allows you to do that. So I think personally, even if we went to a bigger location, I think the goal would still be to step back and let people come through the ranks. And that's when the systems need to come in place. Because at the moment, we've got me and Asa that own a business, and then we've just got self-employed barbers. Whereas if we turn it into a proper business, we're going to have managers in place. You're going to have possibly HR involved if you're dealing with more than 10, 15 people. But yeah, it's kind of getting outside sources to come in to sort of give their input and not try and do anything ourselves. Yeah,
I think that's a really good shout.
Because that's what we done when we started. It was, we didn't know what we'd done. So you're the cleaner, you're the HR, you're the PA, you're the receptionist. And it's not healthy in the long run, because but you haven't got the money to support it in the beginning. Whereas now we're trying to get to a place where you think, right, I'll delegate that to so-and-so, I'll delegate that to this person, because then it makes your job easier.
You're only going to learn it as you go, though,
Absolutely.
aren't you? And what hindsight is a wonderful thing. You can look at all the mistakes or the lessons that you learnt along the way. And if you could start again, you could put them all in place, couldn't you? But we go through that kind of process to come out the other side with the skills.
And I think it's sort of lent itself to us, because people have seen that vulnerable side to us, kind of treading water in the beginning. And it makes you more personal. If we'd opened Mengo's doors on day one and it had been this big corporate business that ran, there was no empathy there was no personality there, I don't think we'd have what we have today. Because people have kind of accepted that more, good on you for giving it a go.
Yeah, it's authentic and it's human, because we're all fallible and we're all prone to making mistakes. What was whether you'd be happy answering this or not is another thing. But what do you reckon one of the biggest mistakes you made in the earlier days of the business?
Oh, that's tough.
Or what's one of the best lessons you learned?
I would probably say now, not having clear goals in mind where we want the business to go. Because even in the last 6 months, because our focus has been so channeled, we've been able to achieve more in 6 months than we've done in 9 years. So it's, looking back now, I think if we'd had them goals and them systems in place, you kind of think, where would we have been now? So it's, you look at there's another shop, I won't mention it now, but there's another shop that are very similar to me and Asa. Both business partners, went into the industry similar time to us, and they're a very different career path now. And you can't help but look at people like that and think, we could have been there. And it's, you question yourself and think, well, what could we have done differently to do that? And I think that was it. There's nothing to do with work ethic. There's nothing to do with our customer service. I think it is literally just not having them clear goals and visions laid out from the very start.
Do you think, though, in your defence, I think 24, 25 years of age, that's difficult to have your shit together to that level. And
it is, and we come from both of us come from families that just worked hard, didn't run businesses. They did run business, but they were involved in the business. Yeah. So my mum and dad both had a job. Ace's mum and dad had jobs. His mum's got a successful business, but she was the main person in the business. So you've never really had them entrepreneurs in the family. And this is where it's now running now, where we're leaning into like Ace's brother Mitch is a very successful entrepreneur, and we're now kind of thinking, right, well, he's not just your brother anymore. He's a very good business person we can have a chat with. Yeah. And it's now kind of bringing in external sources. I've learnt the power of mentors over the past 2 years, because it's very easy to think, it's a waste of money. It's 1,500 quid. I'm not spending that. But the value you'll gain from it is, I wish I'd done it on day one. So it's tough. Yeah, it's a hard question to answer, but I think that would be it. From day one, if we open our next shop now, within 2 years, it will be double as far ahead as that one is now. Yeah. I think.
That's great. Again, it's hindsight, and I think you do have to be kind to yourself. And I know you are. I know you're not beating yourself up for not being further down the line than you are, because it's been a huge success, and everyone that I know really gets their hair cut there. And I know that's not the only measure of success when you're running a barber's and with all the plans you've got moving forward. But yeah, it's so highly thought of, the business in this area, so you should be really proud of it.
I appreciate that.
But I get what you're saying. Like same with my business. Yeah. If I'd really been clear, it was all survival when I first set up, and probably the first 2 years was so. A bit more of a focus on where I wanted to go. I might be further down the line.
It's hard though, because I don't think that vision will ever be met. Like I'm one of these people, and I don't know if Ace will attest to this as well, but my thing is kind of milestones. So we was at a show 2 years ago, and I walked past the wild stage, and I said to Ace, and he'll quote me on it, I said, I'll cut hair on stage next year on that stage. And it happened. And you think, like, when you get there, you think, I've made it. Like, this is it. Whereas it doesn't. My mind then goes, all right, now what? And then you get given the trip to LA last year, and you think, that's career highlight. Like, that doesn't get better than this. I thought I was going to go to LA, come back and think, that's it now. I can just cut hair in the shop for the rest of the time now, because I've done it. Like, but it doesn't again. You then think, all right, well, now what? And it's then, because that's been ticked off, the goalpost then gets made higher. So I don't think you're ever, if you're the sort of person what I think me and you are, I don't think you're ever going to meet the level you think you're going to meet, because once you get there, you then want the next one. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think if I wasn't that person, I'd have settled a long time ago. Yeah,
I think it all goes back to the cliche, and it echoes a conversation I had a few days ago in the last episode I recorded with a friend of mine who's been working his arse off to be a published author for years and years, and has finally got a book deal. And I asked him what it was like when he got the contract through. I said, do you feel like you completed it? And he said, no. And I get it completely, because every goal you get there and you realise the cliche, which is all about, it's not the destination, it's the journey. It's like, what's the process like? Are you enjoying the day to day? Because the likelihood is, when you reach the top of the mountain, you'll be looking for the next one to try and summit.
You enjoy the chase. You don't you don't know how you're going to feel when you get there.
Yeah.
And I know it's very easy for people that have got a lot of wealth to say, money doesn't buy you happiness, but I believe it. I mean, you look at some of the richest people in the world that have given up work, and they're highly depressed because it was the actual job they enjoyed.
It's the process, not the day to day. Yeah. Really good point, mate. No, I think that's a really good point. Okay, I've got one more question to ask you, and then we've got the closing question, if that's all right, Dean. So I think I mentioned the common theme between everyone that comes on in season 2 is that we're all based in and around Leigh or Southend. So you might have answered this already, but what do you think, or do you think I'm completely off my head when I do think there's a common theme in that we've got this concentration of entrepreneurs, creatives, business owners? What do you think it is about this area? I know we're saying they are there, but why are they here in such high numbers?
I think a lot of it is it's small business people with big ideas. I think that's probably the easiest way.
It's a great way to describe it, actually. Yeah,
it's people that have been born or grown up or live in a small town that want bigger things. That's the kind of feeling I get when I'm in Leigh, that you've got these people that have grown up in, like where I am, Eastwood, Rayleigh, Hockley, Leigh, but they want to make something bigger. They want to be like, I listen to a lot of people, and there's a guy called Ed Milet, and he says that there's always one person in a family. You can come from poverty and there'll be one person that will change that. And I think a lot of the people in Leigh want to be that person. They want to build a legacy, or they want to create that wealth. And I think it's people that have not, you don't get many people that have come from London, moved down to Leigh. You get a lot of people that have grown up in Leigh that are trying to build something they can then take to London, or they can keep here and develop it into something bigger. And I think that's what it is. It's a lot of a community feel around there because everyone's got the same mindset. There's not many people in Leigh that only have one business idea. It's a lot of aspirational people. There's people start off with one shop and then they want to get another, or they want to grow a business, and it's everyone kind of leans into everyone and tries to support each other, which I think is what builds Leigh into what it is.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it's addictive in a way, and it's kind of self-perpetuating. You keep speaking to people that have got these ideas and have had a degree of success, and then you see these collaborations happening, and the next level starts to run from there. There is something going on in this area.
It's what I mean. It's a pocket.
It's a great part of the world to be, and I know Essex has got like a stigma attached to it, and there are parts of Essex, and maybe some of those stereotypes are incredibly fair, but. I just feel like there is too much drive, aspiration, entrepreneurship in our little part of the world, that it just felt like a thing that I should be focused on.
Well, we've had it with the vision we've got at the moment with the shop. It would make sense for us to get a shop somewhere else because it's cheaper. We could move on to London Road or Hockley or wherever, and it would be probably half the price. But we won't leave. And I can't even tell you why that is, but we just won't. We've always said we would never give up the shop we're in now. Yeah. Like, regardless, if we had something in the same area that was better, then maybe, but I would never give up our position in Leigh to go work somewhere else.
Well, I think, especially now, I can't really call it a high street, although it's Leigh's version of the high street that you're based on. You know, you're up from around the Broadway onto Leigh Road. It's essentially a long high street, which is what a high street is. But in an age where you don't see the same shop signs for more than a few months at a time, like Mengo has been there brick and mortar for 9 years, and that's what I love about Leigh, is that you see the same names and you know they're independently run businesses that aren't chains. And I think there's just that. I mean, it would be missed. Like your shop is so well known in the area, it'd be like a glaringly obvious hole that has gone. So there's something about that as well, I think. Dean, I've got a closing tradition on the podcast. Obviously, there's another quite well-known podcast. It's marginally better known than mine, where the podcast ends with the previous guest asking the current guest a question. And on this particular podcast, it's my mum that asks the questions.
Okay, nice.
So my mum knows who you are. I've given her a quick bio of who you are. She knows you've cut my hair for a long time, but she doesn't know you personally. And then she will leave me a voice note that I'll play to you with a question. Okay. So I don't listen to this voice note before Mum does it. Let me just find it. She gave her a bit of notice on this one, which is nice. Usually I'm sort of on the way and going, Mum, shit.
Talking to
I need a question. Okay, let me see if I can get the volume right. I can only apologise in advance. Some of these are awful.
No problem.
Hi Dean, in your 20 years of being a barber, how do you cope with children that come in that just don't want to be there? Thank
you. Now Mum's asked this question, I've got a feeling she's referencing me. Yeah. Because at 4 or 5 years old, I was still thrashing around in a barber's chair, absolutely hating life. But yeah, the question is all around how do you deal with kids that don't want to be there?
I usually go for a really tight head. No, I'm joking. It's I think it's setting realistic expectations with the parents.
Right, yeah.
Especially in the past 4, 5, 10 years, like, a kid's haircut used to be a kid's haircut. Yeah. It was, if it was shorter than it was when they come in, it was a good job.
They were happy, yeah.
Whereas now, because of the internet and socials, parents want their kids to have skin fades. So they're not kids' haircuts anymore, and it's just not possible. So it's kind of educating the parents on it. I mean, I have like a process what I do. I did it with your kids. Like, bring them in when you get your haircut.
Yes.
Let them see you. I mean, think about it from a kid's point of view. You're taking them into an unknown place, to a person they've got no clue about, and they're waving sharp objects around their head. Like, it's not going to be a nice experience, is it?
No.
So I'm very much getting people accustomed to the shop to see it as a positive thing before they're even getting a haircut. So I try to get a lot of dads to bring their kids in prior to getting a haircut. Just sit in the shop and watch them getting a haircut, because if they see you getting your hair done, it might kind of lower that barrier of, okay, it's not actually that bad.
Yeah.
And then next time they come in, I'll just brush their hair, or I'll turn a hairdryer on near them, just to kind of get them into it. And then the first haircut, I won't even pick up clippers. It's just scissor work, just to kind of get the length down and get them to. You need to make them believe that not believe, but make them feel that they're in a safe environment, if anything. But like your mum said, if you get kids that you do get it, regardless of what you do, they just don't want to be there and they kick off. And I think it is just, if enough's enough, then you just got to stop.
Accepting defeat.
Yeah, because you get parents that are like headlocking their kids that just do it, just shave it, and what's that going to achieve? You're just going to traumatise the kid.
Well, you're emotionally scarring them for life, aren't you? Yeah.
So that's never going to change. The whole mindset they're going to have when they come to the barbershop is that they hate it. So I'd rather think, look, let's call it a day for today, bring it back in next week or tomorrow, whatever, and we'll try again. And it's patience.
Yeah. These are your clients of the future,
of course,
Dean. This is the thing. So they need to be desensitised.
Don't get me wrong. No barber really enjoys cutting young kids' hair.
Yeah.
But that's why you do it. Because if all of a sudden I said I couldn't cut your boy's hair, you'd probably go somewhere else, because you're not going to have a pain in the arse of taking them
going
somewhere
to a different barber,
and you come and see me. So you've got to see them, that the fact that they might be a bit hard work now, but give it 10 years, they're then double the price.
Yeah.
And then
it's an investment in your future.
And I tell you what, as a marketing strategy, mum on a school gate telling people about their kid's haircut will never spread quicker.
It's a very good point, mate. It's a very good point. Well, thanks, Mum, for that. It was probably one of the more relevant questions that Mum's asked, actually, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, good one.
Dean, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I know it's late, and I know you want to get back home, and it was nice to explore a little bit further, like the history and the journey to date. So I really appreciate it.
No worries.
Cheers,
thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Jobsworth. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to like and subscribe. You can stay connected by following me on LinkedIn for more insights on the world of work, behind the scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes.